All right, let's move on and talk about Russiagate. Of course, this is one of those stories that I have been covering on the old show Foreign Policy Focus and now Conflicts of Interest for years on end. And, one of the claims that came out during Russiagate that was initially and for years really difficult to debunk was this Alfa Bank connection to the Trump organization. And the reason it was kind of difficult to debunk is because there wasn't anything to it. And, if somebody just accuses some random thing of happening and there's no evidence for it, there may be no evidence against it either because it's completely fake. And so that was the case here. This was actually before the 2016 election, late October. This lawyer who works for Perkins Coie, Mike Sussmann, it got the meeting September 19th with FBI General Counsel to provide with data files that was going to prove the alleged collusion between Alfa Bank and the Trump organization. And so at that meeting, Sussmann presented himself as I guess a non-biased actor, and the Perkins Coie is a major representing firm of the DNC and the Clintons. And so, this guy was a part of the Clinton campaign and, kind of knew that the game here was try to create a story in the media where Trump would look bad. This was opposition. This was, just mudslinging smear campaign stuff. But this, really ballooned. And as the whole Russiagate narrative unfolded, because this was one thing where, there wasn't any evidence really to debunk a fake thing that was completely invented. And so it was repeated well into 2019, even though the FBI did know it was untrue in February of 2019. So then we have Hillary Clinton put out this tweet just before the 2016 election saying computer scientists have apparently uncovered a covert server linking the Trump organization to a Russian-based bank. And I believe she's linking, or this is a statement from Jade Sullivan that she's, has photographed here. And that statement talks about the Slate article that I'll get into in a second that reported this, this story. And so the Clinton administration is kind of presenting like there was an independent media outlet found this out, and we're now finding it out too. Again, this is the way it's being presented, although, they're not exactly outright saying that. So there could be deniability or something like that there. Jade Sullivan, it's important to remember, is the current national security advisor to Joe Biden. And this scheme is what Dick Cheney did with Judas Miller to lie the Americans into the war in Iraq with WMDs. So again, Sussmann is now indicted. This is from the John Durham probe that's looking into the origins of Russiagate. I thought from the very beginning it would be a disappointment, and it has been. That being said, that this does seem to be significant, at least to this one lie that Russiagate produced. This indictment was approved by the Attorney General Merrick Garland, who is a Joe Biden appointee. So while the Sussmann team responded that this was political, it doesn't seem to be all that political. Now, the actual lie comes from him not saying how involved he was, with the Clinton campaign, and that, this was essentially a story that the Clinton team was trying to manufacture, and that way he used the FBI and, used FBI resources. Although that's not what he's being charged for. What he's being charged for, is the lie of not, misleading the FBI, saying that he wasn't involved here. All right, so there's a great Glenn Greenwald article out on his Substack titled "The Indictment of Hillary Clinton's Lawyer is an Indictment of the Russiagate Wing of the U.S. Media." And I'm going to be breaking this down to really explain how nefarious this whole thing was. And so he points out at the beginning that this is the second thing to come from the Durham investigation. The first was the guilty plea from FBI agent Kevin Kleinsmith, and this was super nefarious as well, where Carter Page was a CIA asset, and he specifically removed that from the documents that he gave to the FISA court and presented it to the FISA court that Carter Page had no contact with the CIA and was directly said that he wasn't an asset, which he was. And so that, that's an important thing to remember of the Durham investigation. All right, so again, you have Mark Sussmann, who is a lawyer at Perkins. It's Coy. I thought it was Cole. And this organization represents the DNC and the Clinton Foundation. He takes information with a appointment that he gets with the FBI and gives the FBI this information. Then he goes to Slate and meets with this guy, this reporter, Franklin Furor, and he has Franklin run this story as well. And so now the Slate article is running it as like an FBI is investigating this story, this story, but it's just this one guy who's manufacturing it. And then you have it repeated by the Clinton campaign in public, and this is all leading people to believe that Donald Trump is carrying out these secret communications with the Russian Alpha server. Now, what happened, and it was quickly debunked, and the FBI actually knew in February of 2017 that there were no actual links, and I guess what had happened is that some Trump hotel was using some organization to send out their offer for Trump hotel, 25% off, stay 7 nights for $199 a night, or whatever email that you get in your inbox, and that agency was somehow linked to Alphabet. This was completely a non-issue at all. There were no secret communications, and there were no links at all. And that, this was known by the FBI in February 2017. And you would think that this would have been important information for the FBI to give the American people, since this was one of the key claims suggesting by a lot of people in the U.S. mainstream media and particularly Democratic politicians that Donald Trump was actually an agent of a foreign power, that, they could have come out and told the American people that there are no links here and there's no reason to think this was happening. But that unfortunately did not happen. And it wasn't until 2019, December of 2019, that, the American people actually got officially from our government that this was the case. So I think that's a lot of the actual information here of how the Clinton campaign planted the story and tried to spin it up. Of course, the really problematic thing is it lasted for years and was this key basis that was used to demonize Russia to the American public time and time again. And just really problematic what happened here. It's really disgusting. It's an indictment not only of course, Slate and Furor and the FBI and Clinton and the DNC, and of course a literal indictment of Mark Sussmann, but also just of the media as a whole, who reported this for so long, and now that this is being reported, has no interest in talking about it at all. And it's an extremely important story. Again, this is I'm understand the same thing that happened with Judith Miller and Dick Cheney, where they were giving her information, she was publishing it, and then the Bush administration was saying, like, look, it was published in the Washington Post, as giving it extra credibility, and the American people believe that there's a different source that these publications have, and that's not the case. It's the same source, and it's being fabricated by one person. And while Franklin unfortunately will not be, fired and cast out of journalism forever for this, crime that he helped to, fake crime that he helped to sell the American people, but has actually been promoted and now works at The Atlantic. So That's the main part of it. Now, a couple things that Glenn Greenwald points out at the end of his article that I think are important too. He says other issues. The FBI should have known that Sussmann was a political op and never taken that seriously. Without the FBI looking into this, it doesn't give Slate as much credibility to run the story. And then, of course, why did the FBI not say anything? And also, Natasha Bertrand, who is about the worst Russiagator we've had in this whole thing, and member of the media who's constantly reported these fake stories to the American people, and refused to admit that she's lied to us the entire time. She reported in March 2017, which is a month after we knew that the FBI knew that this story was fake. And so, this is a month after everybody in the FBI knows that this is fake. She's reporting that the FBI is still seriously looking into it. So, that's another real issue. And why was she reporting that? That's something that we should get to the bottom of. Now, it's very telling that the mainstream media spent the entire weekend talking about these nothing protests, and really leading up to the entire week, these nothing protests in DC of some people demanding that protesters are people who are January 6th who are alleged of committing various crimes. Whether or not they commit those crimes is still in question. Some of them are still being held in solitary confinement in these brutal, horrific conditions. And so there are people there saying that they're political prisoners being let out of jail. However, only about 5 people showed up. One of the main people that seemed to be maybe an actual protester was this kid in a coonskin cap holding an American flag. There's also this situation where there's an armed man on the scene, but that of course turned out to be some kind of law enforcement. He had a badge and was undercover. They let him go with his gun. There were reports that he may have been charged, but I'm not sure how serious that is. It's pretty clear from all the photos that I've seen that there was definitely more media at this event and probably more counter protesters than actual protesters. And so everybody's all concerned about, the integrity of our elections and election interference. And they're focusing on this nothing event when here we have an indictment that again was backed by Biden's Attorney General, Merrick Garland, that's showing how they tried to manipulate an election and then lied to the American people about it for 4 years afterwards. And that should certainly deserve more media attention than it's getting.